It was the most glorious day for the United States in Formula One, a moment that has yet to be and likely will never be matched. Now that was a moment worthy of some champagne spray. And here it is, Chassis 104, the very car Gurney drove to victory at Spa in 1967, complete with the iconic and elegant Eagle beak made out of fiberglass. The Eagle is a beautifully sculpted car with shark gills for cooling and its magnesium and titanium monocoque for strength and rigidity.
The greatest of international motoring events is once again at Le Mans. The Palmer goes off well, but the beautifully prepared white and blue American Duesenbergs are equally fast.
It's 1921, and it's Le Mans, France. It's the French Grand Prix. An American driver, Jimmy Murphy, is about to achieve something that hadn't been seen before. Taking part in the 30-lap race around the then 10.7-mile Circuit de Dessart, Murphy drove his Duesenberg to a dominant victory, the first for an American driver driving an American car in foreign soil. 4 Duesenbergs were entered for the race on the 25th of July, and Augie Duesenberg himself was present to help prepare the cars for the race. The Duesenbergs had an advantage. Their cars featured a hydraulic 4-wheel brake system, allowing drivers to brake later for the corners. Jimmy Murphy, however, was at a disadvantage. Murphy was suffering from bruised ribs as a result of the Duesenberg he was driving striking a grass-covered hole that caused the car to overturn. Cause for hitting the hole in the first place? A horse managed to escape into the road, and a surprised Murphy swerved hard in an effort to miss it. Taped from the armpits to the waist for the race, Murphy drove his number 12 Duesenberg to an impressive win before the sea of spectators. The all-American combination of Murphy and this Duesenberg was so good that the pairing would go on to win the Indianapolis 500 the following year. In spite of this remarkable moment in motor racing history, Murphy's Grand Prix win set in motion an all-American drought in Grand Prix racing that would last right up through another world war and more than 4 decades. It seemed like there would never be another all-American victory in Grand Prix racing. But then came the 1960s and Dan Gurney. Dan Gurney started a beloved tradition without even realizing it. Gurney was one of the United States' best drivers in Formula One and in other forms of racing.
Dan Gurney, driving the number 1 Ford Mark IV, has steadily moved through the pack.
He was well known for his character, to the point there was a light-hearted but well-received campaign started by a car and driver calling for Dan Gurney for president. How fitting then, after winning Le Mans with co-driver A.J. Foyt, Gurney would be so excited that he would start a tradition that will forever serve as a tribute to Dan himself. As Gurney himself would state, "I was so stoked that when they handed me the Magnum of Moet Chandon, I shook the bottle and began spraying at the photographers, drivers, Henry Ford II, Carroll Shelby, and their wives. It was a very special moment at the time. I was not aware that I had started a tradition that continues in winner circles all over the world to this day." Although widely popular, Gurney wasn't the only post-war successful American driver racing in Europe. Phil Hill became a Formula One world champion, but then there was Richie Ginther, Maston Gregory, and Peter Revson. However, neither of these American drivers were as popular, and dare I say as good, as Dan Gurney. And Dan was trying to go that one step further, trying to win driving a car of his own making. The all-American combination of Murphy and Duesenberg won the French Grand Prix in 1921. Gurney, Foyt, and Shelby American partnered to become the first and, to date, only all-American partnership to achieve victory at Le Mans. Therefore, it seemed only right when Gurney and Shelby decided to create a new racing team, the name they would decide upon would be All-American Racers. Gurney and Shelby started the organization in 1964. The name itself announced the goal, the expectation of what was to come. Gurney and Shelby combined forces to start the organization, and it would all be based in Santa Ana, California. With the help of Goodyear, the immediate focus would be the Indianapolis 500. But Gurney didn't want to focus only on Indy. He wanted to go after Formula One as well. He had driven for Jack Brabham, therefore he too wanted to be a world champion, but in a car of his own making. He was proud to be an American, and the design of AAR's cars would make that abundantly clear. So Gurney set about designing a car for Formula One, and the patriotism would be incorporated into the very first chassis. And here it is, Chassis 101. Gurney's cars weren't just cars. They were eagles, made prominent by the beak added to the radiator inlet. But while the beak may have been a statement as to the car's origins, they also made the Eagles one of the most elegant cars in the paddock. Just 3 years after forming as All-American racer, Gurney was spraying champagne at Le Mans. But this would be just the beginning of what had to be the best week of Gurney's life. Gurney didn't have an easy road in his motor racing career. However, his talent as a driver was such that he scored the very first victories for both Brabham and Porsche in Formula One. Jim Clark apparently saw Dan as his greatest competitor and the man he most feared. The very next weekend after Le Mans, everything would come together for Gurney, and he would demonstrate exactly why Clark was right. 1 week after that triumph at Le Mans, AAR arrived at Spa-Francorchamps for the Belgian Grand Prix and unloaded its latest chassis, 104. The team set about preparing the car for the 28-lap race around the 8.77-mile-long Spa circuit. Benefiting from its lightweight titanium and magnesium build, 104 was quick around the ultra-fast Spa circuit. Going up against the Lotus pairing of Jim Clark and Graham Hill, Gurney managed to split the teammates and started second for the 245-mile race on the 18th of June. A terrible start dropped Gurney well down in the field. By the time the field streamed over the top of Radion for the first time, Gurney found himself outside the top 5, doing his best to go on the attack. Although he'd managed to recover and retake second place in the running order, there seemed to be absolutely nothing he could do about Clark and his Lotus. That is until Clark's engine began to miss because of fouled plugs. Clark made a call to the pits to have the team try and remedy the situation, and so keep Gurney behind him. But in what would end up being the fastest Grand Prix to that point in history, Clark could do nothing to keep the lead over Gurney, though he was suffering troubles of his own. Gurney's Westlake engine was misfiring too. This dropped the American driver into the clutches of Scotland's Jackie Stewart. Gurney held on to second and was doing his best to hold that position when he noticed Stewart was showing signs of trouble as well. So Dan decided to go for it. Gurney pressed on to cross the line in the Eagle, taking the win by more than a minute over Stewart and Ferrari's Chris Amon. It may have been Belgium, but the American driver winning in an American car could not have been more well received by the assembled crowd. Gurney had done it. But he not only joined Jimmy Murphy as an American driver winning in an American car, he did one better. After all, the Eagle was a car Dan himself had built. In that moment, he would become one of just 3 to ever win a Formula One race in a car the driver had built. It was the most glorious day for the United States in Formula One, a moment that has yet to be and likely will never be matched. Now that was a moment worthy of some champagne spray. And here it is, Chassis 104, the very car Gurney drove to victory at Spa in 1967, complete with the iconic and elegant Eagle beak made out of fiberglass. The Eagle is a beautifully sculpted car with shark gills for cooling and its magnesium and titanium monocoque for strength and rigidity. Titanium rocker arms help to move the dampers and coil spring components inboard out of the airflow between the body of the car and the wheels. Girling disc brakes provided the stopping power. To complete this truly beautiful car, Gurney and his team employed a 3-liter V12 Westlake engine capable of around 390 horsepower. The Westlake engine is a semi-stressed member of the car in that it was mounted directly to the chassis, but the rear components of the car would be bolted to a monocoque structure that ran to either side and below the engine, and that incorporated the car's fuel tanks as well. The addition of the V12 Westlake engine to Gurney's Eagle transformed the car. While the Eagle Mk1 had its weaknesses, its performances, like that at Spa in '67, along with that subtle beak, made it a Formula One icon and one of the sport's most beautiful and elegant cars. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you would like to see or read more about Dan Gurney's Eagle Mk1 Chassis 104, or either Jimmy Murphy's Duesenberg or the 1967 Le Mans winning Ford GT40, then follow the links in the description to conceptcars.com. If you would like to see these cars in person, you can find 104 at the Revs Institute in Naples, Florida. The 67 winning GT40, chassis J-5, currently resides in the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan. And Jimmy Murphy's Duesenberg is part of the collection housed at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum, which has been newly renovated and is now open.